Donald Trump has done some big things, both in real estate and in life. So if you want to do some big things, you might have a thing or two to learn from President Trump and his book, The Art of the Deal. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Mastering Real Estate Podcast. This podcast is for real estate investors and professionals looking to take their real estate game to the next level. On Tuesdays, I analyze the industry's leading real estate books and break down the main lessons that you can apply to your life and business. Then on Thursdays, I review the lessons I have learned from flipping over 100 houses and being a full-time real estate investor since 2018. Stay tuned each week so that we can all become masters of real estate together. Welcome back to the Mastering Real Estate Podcast. This is episode 13, and today we are reviewing Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump has done some big things both in real estate and in life. If you want to do big things, you might have a thing or two to learn from President Trump and his book, The Art of the Deal. So stay tuned. I'm your host, Maura. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2018. I've managed over 100 flips, founded and grew a real estate investment firm, and I live and work in the real estate industry every day. Why should you tune into this podcast? Well, there's a lot of BS out there when it comes to real estate, but there's timeless wisdom in books like the one we're covering today. I cover a broad array of topics and help you become a well-rounded real estate professional. Finally, I want to help you take action. I boil down the key lessons and takeaways from each book into action steps that you can apply to your life and business. This week, we are reviewing Donald Trump's The Art of the Deal, which he wrote when he was in his 40s. It's very interesting to read this book now, having an idea of all the things that Trump has accomplished since writing this book. I think that a good way to kick off this book review is with a quote from the end of the book. Trump says, "In my life, there are two things I've found I'm very good at: overcoming obstacles and motivating good people to do their best work. One of the challenges ahead is how to use those skills as successfully in the service of others as I've done up to now on my own behalf." I doubt he knew it at the time that he would one day become president of the United States, but it's pretty amazing to read that knowing what we know now. So let's get into the book and see if we are indeed motivated by President Trump. Before we jump into the book, let's learn a little bit about the author. Donald John Trump was born on June 14th, 1946 in Queens, New York City. Before entering politics, Trump had a successful career in real estate as a businessman and television personality. He is the fourth of 5 children of Fred and Mary Trump. He attended the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, graduating with a degree in economics. In the 1970s, Trump joined his father's real estate development company, eventually taking over and renaming it the Trump Organization. Over the years, he became known for his high-profile real estate ventures, including the Trump Tower in New York City and various luxury properties around the world. He also gained national recognition by being the host of the reality TV show The Apprentice. As the 45th President of the United States, Trump's presidency was marked by a focus on economic policies, tax reforms, deregulation, and a commitment to conservative judicial appointments. Here's a quick summary of the book. The Art of the Deal is a memoir written by Donald J. Trump and author Tony Schwartz, published in 1987. The book provides insights into Trump's business career and his approach to deal-making. It covers Trump's early real estate ventures, his involvement in high-profile projects like the Trump Tower, and the challenges that he faced along the way. The central theme revolves around Trump's business philosophy, which emphasizes boldness, persistence, and negotiation skills. The book offers anecdotes from Trump's various business dealings, providing readers with a glimpse into his mindset and strategies. It also delves into his experiences, successes, and setbacks in the real estate industry. He describes a typical week in his life, how he got started in real estate, breaking into the New York real estate and New Jersey casino scene, and trying to get the U.S. Football League started, a competitor to the NFL. After reading this book, my main impressions of Donald Trump are that even at 40 years old, when he wrote this book, he was driven, relentless, a fierce fighter, and a showman. This book is not a super tactical guide to real estate, but there are some important recurring themes that I would consider the key concepts of this book. And they are as follows. The first key point that Trump emphasizes several times is to hire the best. He says, I have a very simple rule when it comes to management. Hire the best people from your competitors, pay them more than they were earning, and give them bonuses and incentives based on their performance. This is how you build a first-class operation. And as Trump does several real estate deals in several cities around the world, this is a key tenet of his management style. He always tries to hire the best to manage his projects so that he can provide top-level service. The second key concept is thinking big. Trump says, I like thinking big. I always have. To me, it's very simple. If you're going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big. For anyone who's familiar with Donald Trump, this comes at no surprise, but he really emphasizes thinking big. Initially, he inherits his father's real estate development company, which is a very successful company, builds tons of kind of low and middle income housing all over New York City. But from a very young age, it's clear that Donald Trump thought big and he wanted to build big buildings and make bold statements and really leave his mark on the real estate industry and on the world. So he really believes in thinking big and encourages other people to think big as well. The third key tenet of this book is to get opinions and talk to people. Trump says, I'm a great believer in asking everyone for an opinion before I make a decision. It's a natural reflex. I've learned much more from conducting my own random surveys than I could have ever learned from the greatest consulting firms. So Trump loves to talk to people. He is very decisive when it comes down to it, but he loves to get other people's opinions. And it sounds like from the book that he loves to talk to lots of people, especially around his developments. Anyone from cab drivers, retailers, people on the street. He loves to get his own sense about what's going on in a place and in a business deal. He really has no love for consultants, committees, and so-called experts. It's really clear that he thinks that a lot of times consultants and committees are a total waste of time and money, and he thinks that you can form your own pretty well-informed decision by just talking to the people around you and the people familiar with a project or business deal, and probably make as good, if not a better decision yourself than relying on consultants and committees to try to provide some sort of professional option. The fourth key concept from this book is to work the press. And this should come as no surprise because Donald Trump has been very artful in his use of the press throughout his career. He says, the point is, if you are a little different or a little outrageous, or if you do things that are bold or controversial, the press is going to write about you. To me, it's clear from reading this book that he believes that almost all press is good press. There's several instances where he gets negative press in the book, but it actually turns out most of the time to be a positive thing. And we saw this in his campaigns and during his presidency, that Donald Trump likes to do things bold, different. He has no problem being controversial. That did seem to really work out for him in the election. He was really able to gain traction, gain a lot of media attention, and that's something that he's been able to do for his whole career. So being able to work the press, do things differently, be bold, be a little bit of a showman, that is definitely a theme in this book. The fifth and final key concept is leadership. He says, leadership is perhaps the key to getting any job done. And one thing that kind of struck me from this book is Trump would get personally involved in a lot of the details of all his projects. There was a problem, he most of the time would go and personally investigate, oversee, and manage the issue. He had no problem getting involved, getting his hands dirty, dealing with whoever he needed to deal with, leaning on contractors, he was a strong leader as a real estate developer, and obviously as a president. He was willing to go the extra mile to be an involved leader. That is absolutely crucial. Building a successful building, probably doing whatever you're doing in business, being a good leader and being personally involved, your projects, is extremely important. If I had to boil this book down, I would boil it down to these 7 basic ideas. Number 1, think big. Number 2, fake it till you make it. Number 3, fight hard. Number 4, work the press. Number 5, hire the best. Number 6, trust your instincts. And number 7, be personally involved. I know that these are all simple statements, but they are the recurring themes from the book, and they are what I'll take with me after reading it. As you can imagine, there are a lot of great quotes in this book, but here are 3 that I really like that we haven't covered yet. I also include a lot more great quotes in the digital flashcards that you can access for free in the show notes. Quote number 1, my style of deal making is quite simple and straightforward. I aim very high and then I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get what I'm after. Sometimes I settle for less than I sought, but in most cases, I still end up with what I want. I like this quote because I think it just really encapsulates Trump's style. He really is a fighter, and he's relentless, and he's always pushing for what he wants, and he never gives up. And I think that really has to do a lot with what's made him successful over the years. Second notable quote is this one. One of the keys to thinking big is total focus. I think of it almost as a controlled neuroses, which is a quality I've noticed in many highly successful entrepreneurs. They're obsessive, they're driven, they're single-minded, and sometimes they're almost maniacal, but it's all channeled into their work. Where other people are paralyzed by neurosis, the people I'm talking about are actually helped by it. I really like this quote. This comes after a section where he's talking about thinking big, and he's saying that one of the important parts of thinking big is this total focus and kind of almost maniacal focus on whatever it is you're working on. I think he's right. I think a lot of the extremely successful people are just tunnel visioned and relentlessly focused on whatever it is that they're building or interested in. Not that that is the right way to live for everybody, but I think that this level of obsession probably is a common trait for very highly successful people, because this obsession and total focus drives you further than most people are willing to go. The third quote that I thought was notable is this one. The final key to the way I promote is bravado. I play to people's fantasies. People may not always think big themselves, but they can still get very excited by those who do. That's why a little hyperbole never hurts. People want to believe that something is the biggest and greatest and the most spectacular. I call it truthful hyperbole. It's an innocent form of exaggeration and a very effective form of promotion. This is such a great quote because we all know Donald Trump, loves to use exaggeration and hyperbole and bravado, and most of us have had the chance to witness at least a little bit of it since his campaign and presidency. It's so true. I think in a lot of ways he's right about this, that not everyone is geared towards thinking big, but people do like to believe in the spectacular and, think that, things are the biggest, the boldest, the greatest. A lot of people like a little drama, myself included. So I think that he is really onto something with how he promoted all of his projects and how he ran his campaign, was unafraid to kind of break out of that stoic kind of robotic politician box and add a little showmanship, add a little bravado. He's not afraid to use a little bit of hyperbole. And as he puts it, it's, truthful hyperbole. Some people might love it, some people might hate it, but I think that this quote is very notable and definitely encapsulates a little bit about who Donald Trump is. Okay, what did I like about this book? It was a decent book. It was an easy read, it was interesting, and it provided some general good advice, a little bit of insight into Trump's personality, which I found very interesting. What did I dislike about the book? A few things. The first thing is that the book focuses mostly on his wins and not very much on his losses or failures, which in my opinion makes the whole book seem a little less genuine and impactful and a little surface level. He does talk about a couple losses, but predominantly it's focused on his successes and the lessons learned from his success. But I have to imagine that if with his career and everything he's done, there probably are some deeper, darker moments that have been left out. In my opinion, maybe including some of those or a few more of them would have made the book a little bit more dynamic, seem a little bit less surface level. My second point here, critique here, is that the book doesn't delve too deep into Trump the man. I did enjoy the insight about his personality that I was able to glean from the book. You kind of get the sense of him, but you don't come away from the book feeling like you know Donald Trump or that you can relate to him on a deeper level at all. It's the book, in my opinion, stayed on the surface level, which was still interesting, but I think it could have been really good if we got a little bit below the surface level, got to know Trump on a little bit deeper level, real estate deals a little bit deeper level, and delved into the details, into the specific tactics that helped him succeed. The book, in my opinion, just lacked depth overall. It was kind of a good but surface level book. Here are 3 lessons that we can take away from Donald Trump to help our businesses be more successful. Lesson number 1, hire the best. Whenever possible, hire the best people away from your competitors, pay them well, and give them incentives and bonuses according to their performance. Building a winning organization starts with having a winning team. And if you can't afford the best in the business, my advice would be to hire the best that you can afford and then level up as soon as it's financially feasible. The second lesson that we can all implement is trust your instincts. Trump emphasizes this several times in the book that your gut instincts are usually right. Don't assume that the so-called experts know better than you. Especially when it comes to your business and your money, no one has better instincts than you. So trust your gut. And the third lesson that we can all implement is work the press. People and the press love bravado and showmanship, which Trump demonstrated in this book, on television, in his TV show, in his campaign. We can all take a leaf out of his book when it comes to marketing. Whenever possible, add a little drama and showmanship into your digital marketing to help grow your following, promote your product, whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to be a little bit dramatic, a little bit controversial. That's probably just going to help you when it comes to marketing, advertising, and promotion. Who should read this book? I think that people who want to compete very competitive real estate markets like New York, California, and most of the East Coast for that matter should read this book, because it gives you a decent idea of what it takes to succeed if you want to compete with the really big dogs. If you are at that level or want to be at that level, this would be good recommended reading for you. I think that a lot of people would enjoy reading this book, and there's some good general advice that would apply to a lot of people, a lot of business owners. I'm not saying that only people who want to compete in the highest end real estate should read it. Definitely, if you want to play at that level of real estate, this guy's done it, and he at least gives you an idea of what it takes to succeed. If you're at that level, you want to start building skyscrapers or casinos in some of the toughest markets in the world, read this. And if you are just interested in learning more about Donald Trump, or just want to learn to think bigger and maybe scale up your own operation, it could also help you with that. It's a decent read. If nothing else, it's entertaining. Overall, I would rate this book a 6 out of 10. The book is decent and pretty entertaining for a real estate or business book, which I appreciated. Overall, it was easy read, interesting, and enjoyable. However, I found it to be lacking in depth. I found it mostly to be a surface level book. We didn't really get below the surface, learning about Donald Trump as a person. And we also didn't get too in depth about how to negotiate or compete in big real estate deals. So I think that detracted a little bit from the book and maybe go back and add that depth, it would take it to the next level. But overall, I gave it a solid 6. Now let's take a quick minute to thank our show sponsor, Duratus Academy. Donald Trump stresses the importance of thinking big is a little light on the details of how to actually make it big. Well, that's where I can step in and help if your dream is to make it big in real estate investing. Back when I started my business, I had no idea what I was doing. I figured things out along the way, a lot of times the hard way. Now I've reviewed all my lessons learned and made a roadmap. If I could go back in time and do it all over again, this is the exact roadmap that I would follow in order to fast track my success, not waste nearly as much money or have as much stress. So I have a masterclass that walks you through step by step how to get started in real estate investing the right way. So make sure that you check it out at DuratusAcademy.com because it could really help you. Also, as I mentioned before, when I read these books, I take all of the key concepts and the good quotes and put them into digital flashcards that you can review for free in the show notes. Just check out the podcast section of DuratusAcademy.com. For this book, you'll find flashcards with all the best quotes and concepts from the book. This concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Come back on Thursday to learn about how I bought my first property at auction at the courthouse steps. A very crazy story. Then I will see you next Tuesday when I review the book Profit First for Real Estate Investing with our guest Aziz Shinara, who's the CFO and a managing partner at Duratus Properties. This is a really good one. This book will transform your business finances, I promise. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. We are a new and growing podcast, so every rating, review, and share helps immensely. Also, make sure that you're following us on social media where you'll see a lot more behind the scenes content on a daily basis. See you every Tuesday and Thursday.